Hi, everyone. Welcome to our intro webinar for members of associations that are now partners with the Sustainable Libraries Initiative. My name is Rebekkah Smith Aldrich. I'm the co-founder and board president of the Sustainable Libraries Initiative, and I'm joined today by Matthew Bollerman, our co-founder and vice president of the advisory board of the Sustainable Libraries Initiative, as well as Alex and Hannah, who are staff members of the SLI. Today, our goal is to help give you an introduction to the Sustainable Libraries Initiative and a peek into the benefits that you receive now that you have access to a free 12-month membership to the Sustainable Libraries Initiative, thanks to your association's partnership with the SLI. So if you are wondering why I'm not naming a specific association, is because we have a big mix of folks from around the country today. These are all of our partner associations. Our newest groups to join us are from Delaware and Michigan, so welcome. But we've also got folks on the line here from the Association of Rural and Small Libraries, the Association of Research Libraries, which are national organizations, as well as 9 other states that have arrangements with us for their members to have a free membership with the Sustainable Libraries Initiative, which we really appreciate the partnership in getting the word out and really growing the community of practice across the country for the work that we're doing here through the SLI. So today what we're going to do is take a look at what is the SLI, why are we doing what we're doing, and what does membership include once you join and have your 12-month membership begin. So as we noted, once you kind of say, yes, please, you get a 12-month membership for free, and that can be either at the individual level or at your library. And so if you want to double check what your association membership is under, your name or your library, that might be helpful. And then if you're ready to go with the Sustainable Library Certification Program, you also get a discount in joining that program, which Matthew is going to explain to get you an introduction to that. And then if you're like, whoa, that sounds amazing, we want to do that, there's a whole second webinar tomorrow where you can hear from libraries who are enrolled in the Sustainable Library Certification Program and can tell you from a frontline experience perspective what it's doing for their library and how it's strengthening their community. But to get started, we want to explain the Sustainable Libraries Initiative and kind of where we're coming from. We're actually in our 10th year of existence, which I almost have to pinch myself when I say that because it's been a long journey and a really exciting journey. But when I say we, Matthew and I came up with this idea over a decade ago because of our really keen interest in sustainable design for library buildings. And then as we started talking about why don't more libraries think about this and do this work, we realized, well, it's because no one's really taken on the responsibility to create a path for libraries to do so. And so we started looking around and found a lot of like-minded people who were very interested in sustainability, a lot of folks that were very worried about climate change and not quite sure what that was going to mean in the future for their communities or the fate of their library. So for the past 10 years, we've been building this amazing group of people across our country and now actually across the world who are also thinking about this. What does it look like for libraries to be leaders on the topic of sustainability and to be known for contributing to the resilience of our communities and being really strong partners in this work? Because as most of you know who are living in reality, we are confronted with some really challenging things going on right now and are coming very clearly in the future. And just looking at one aspect of this work, which is the impact of climate change on our communities, we have a host of major problems confronting us. I know many of you are from different parts of the country today, so it looks a little different depending on where you're living. But at this point, given the effects of climate change, climate scientists have been very clear since 2020. We have turned a corner here, and it's just going to continue to get worse and more severe over the next 3 decades. And that's even if we did everything right when it comes to climate change. So I'm sorry to be a bummer about that here on this beautiful day here in December. But the truth is, you can see it reflected in the headlines, in your own experience. If you look at the trajectory of these severe weather events since the 1980s, it's increased dramatically. You're probably familiar with the phrase $1 billion worth of damage or $1 billion event. You often hear about it during hurricane season or when the atmospheric rivers are hitting California and the West Coast. In the 1980s, there was $1 billion event once every 78 days. Now, in the past 2 years, it's been once every 18 days. So that frequency is picking up, the severity is picking up because $1 billion today is a heck of a lot more than it was in the 1980s. So, just from an economic standpoint, we see the devastation. But the real important part is our human well being and our ability to thrive in the face of what's going on in front of that work. So we know there's work to be done. You're already doing a lot of this work. But as Matthew and I thought about how do we get traction on this issue, where are we going to go with this? We had to first start to define terms and to build coalitions across the country on this topic to help people understand we could no longer leave to chance what libraries' involvements in these conversations would look like. So in 2019, we actually convinced the American Library Association's Council that sustainability should be a core value of our profession. It should be embedded in how we think and do our work, how we design our buildings, how we think about programs and partnerships throughout our communities, our schools, and on our campuses. And this was a massive turning point in the work that we've been doing for now over a decade because it created vocabulary, which we're going to explain that for you in just a minute. It created very clear guidance for library schools. So now, if a library school wants to be accredited as an ALA recognized institution, it must teach sustainability as part of the curriculum and what that actually looks like in practice, which is something that I know many of you are here to learn more about today. But our goal is that every person throughout the profession embraces the idea that every job is a climate job. And that includes library jobs, trustee volunteer work, association business. We all have to do our part to confront what's going on and to take action. Not waiting for others to take action. We have to, really acknowledge what we can control and influence in these situations. And so that's what we've really focused on. Matthew and I both like to see progress. We're not really after perfection, but we want to see forward motion on things that improves the situation and protects people and our libraries overall. So when we say taking climate action, here's what we mean by that. We mean the traditional, good old going green stuff. We're definitely going to talk about that. But there's also a far more acute need for us to be talking about two other components of climate action, which includes adapting in the face of that severe weather and other disruptions that are facing our communities, as well as doing work that makes sure it's done through a lens of justice as we think about how people interact with solutions that are being thrown at them for a variety of challenges they are confronted with. So when we say climate action, we're talking about these three components. The word mitigation, which is that good old-fashioned, let's just reduce greenhouse gas emissions and hope that our grandchildren have a better go of it than we're going to have in the next 30 years. That's really, I think, what most people think of when they think about climate action is that issue of reducing greenhouse gas emissions through designing better buildings, less transportation or less dirty transportation across the globe, and thinking more about how much waste is going into the waste stream, right? Those are all very traditional kind of going green Earth Day things that we think about, but it has to be coupled now with adaptation given the patterns of severe weather that we're now confronted with. And so helping people understand what's most likely to impact the place they live, how it might impact the buildings that we're operating out of, how do we keep people safe, how do we protect people that are very vulnerable in our communities and address their needs, as well as the needs of other people who are often the ones making the policy around these issues. And then a really big blanket over all of this to make sure that we're increasing the empathy, respect, and understanding that people have for one another so they're actually able to work together and solve the issue of the day, whatever it might be in your town or city or county or state, so that we can have a future we can look forward to and thrive within. And so these three pieces are how we think of climate action. And you can find this all spelled out in what's called the National Climate Action Strategy for Libraries, which we partnered with the American Library Association to produce just 2 years ago now, which it doesn't seem like that long, but it is a really long time. So if you haven't seen this document before, I really encourage you to check it out. You've got the QR code right there. But that's going to explain what I just did kind of like a speed explanation of here in just a few minutes. You can see the strategy, which is just 1 page long and explains those things I just talked about. But then the booklet that it comes with is 19 more pages of how to talk about these things, examples from libraries of all types of how they're carrying out these three things, resources for you to think about this and really learn more in the profession of what's going on. We actually conducted a national survey to inform the creation of this strategy. And the number one barrier that was reported to us by library leaders who filled out that survey was fear of political retribution for doing work in this space. We've got folks in all different political climates across this country, and the acknowledgement that sometimes language that we use or projects that we pursue have certain, I don't know, mythologies or negativity associated with them. There's lots of suggestions in this handbook of how to talk about this stuff and how to align with what other people are thinking to make sure the good work gets done that needs to be done. So in a way, this is like a compact mini version of a lot of the stuff we've done over the past 10 years, and just one of many ways we've kind of come up with to figure out how to get the whole profession moving in the right direction on these things. So we totally subscribe to the idea of collective impact. And that's what we've been working on for these past 10 years, is helping libraries see that there's so many smart people in our profession. We make a lot of great choices. Are we spending our time on the things that will have the biggest impact for our profession and those we serve out in our community? So you can see this little graphic here, kind of helping people understand that we're not just in our own silos doing our own little dance, but we're going to all try to understand things, learn together, pull together in the same direction, learning together, iterating on what each other is doing well, and go further, faster, because that's really what this moment is calling for. So as we think about what is being done at the government level, what might be done at your state level, what might be done at your local municipal level, we have to be part of these conversations that are going in the right direction. And depending on where you are in the country, you may find more or less supporters who are doing that same work and want to work with you as you move forward. But at the end of the day, what we've tried to think about is how this work really repositions libraries to be more respected, to be healthier long term, both in terms of how we treat people as well as financially, and really start to think about the legacy that we're leaving during our professional lives. So what we've discovered over our experiences with the other libraries in the community of practice that we've built, when we say what is a sustainable library, we find they have these 4 key attributes. They're libraries that are really authentic. They truly live their values out loud. We don't just have a policy that says we defend the right to read and respect people's privacy, and of course, we adopt the idea of being a public good. But you see that reflected in how we treat our staff, making sure our buildings are healthy for humans, making sure that the partnerships that we pick are really aligned with collective action strategies in our communities as well as our organizations, and that we're deliberately focused on the idea of social cohesion and civic participation. That we're not just like, one person thought that would be a good idea to do a program on something like this, but that we embed it and weave it into everything we're offering and the way we do business as libraries to try to be the catalyst that's often necessary to bring people together in our communities in a way that's nonpartisan, not commercial, and really just good for them to get to meet each other in a space that's not judging them or asking them for money. And so as we think through, what does this look like? You might be thinking to yourself, oh, we do a lot of that already, which is fantastic. That means you've got a head start in the certification program if you want to go that route. But the other 2 things that really are hallmarks of sustainable libraries are the things that you probably could have guessed without hearing Matthew and I speak here today. But that idea of deliberately being part of climate change mitigation, that we set goals for ourselves to bring down our electricity usage, to reduce waste in our organization, to treat the earth and natural resources with respect, as well as being an active participant in making sure our communities are really adapting in the face of what's going on. And so that can take many different forms. It very much depends on your library, the kind of building you're in, the kind of geography that you're in, what's called for in those moments. It could be making sure your library has redundancy when it comes to electricity, to make sure you can be open in an extended power outage. Or it might mean like a library trustee I met down in Louisiana, when they rebuilt after a hurricane, they designed the parking parking lot to be able to handle a big old line of traffic to come in and pick up dry ice and diapers, right? So those adaptations that may be necessary are very specific to your place. And we feel that's a hallmark of what we've done here for everyone, is to really design things so that it respects your type of library, whether you're public, school, academic, as well as the size library that you may be. In my system, I guess I didn't mention this, I'm a public library system director here in New York State. I'm a consortia with 66 libraries between New York City and Albany. I have a library that serves 60,000 people, and I have one that serves under 500 people. I've got everything in between. And honestly, the certification program and the resources work for all of them. That's something that we held as a design construct as we've built things over time. Because we really feel that doing this kind of work can feel very overwhelming. And I wonder if some of you are feeling very overwhelmed right now as you hear me talking. But when you confront something as large as climate change and political disruption and people not getting along in our communities, these are huge, complicated issues. But the truth is, we know what we wish it would look like. And if we understand where we want to get to, we can start making better decisions on the everyday basis so that all the small things we do add up to that vision we have for creating a stronger, more resilient, healthier community at the end of the day, and for libraries to be a strong partner in that work. And so you'll find that at the heart of really most of the things we do here at the Sustainable Libraries Initiative. So, as I mentioned, ALA has adopted sustainability as a core value. And we defined that because people use the word sustainability all the time for all sorts of different things. It might be for financial sustainability, it may be for your well-being, all sorts of things, right? It's also not just about going green. And that's what Matt and I were confronting all the time when we would try to make the case for what we were talking about. And people would be like, oh, yeah, you mean going green, right? We're like, well, yeah, but because this is so sustainable. When you think about how we got to where we are, it was a lot of bad decisions in a lot of different sectors. And so trying to improve things is going to require different decisions in all of those same sectors. But our theory is that we need to find balance amongst these three key things. So that environmental stewardship, which a lot of us we can definitely think of what that looks like, but also making sure we're making socially equitable choices as a library and economically feasible decisions as well, because we don't have unlimited funds. We don't have unlimited time. We have many demands on the things that we do. So again, progress, not perfection, would mean that we use this model here, which we call the triple bottom line of sustainability, to find balance amongst these three things. You can think of examples of this at every level of the work you do at libraries. For the public library folks in the room, when you've got your staff who are buying maybe incentives for summer reading program, you're just thinking through that one purchase. Where did that item come from? What materials are it made out of? Were the people who made it paid a living wage? At the end of its useful life, where does it go? What is the message we're sending by purchasing this item? And now you might find that a little overwhelming or maybe even paralyzing, and thinking about, do I have to go through all those questions for everything we buy? Well, yeah, sort of. We should be more responsible consumers and really think about the money we're spending and which companies we're giving it to, and do they reflect the values that we have? And at the end of the day, could some of these decisions that we make stand on their own to really explain who we are as an organization? So that can be scaled up to very large things like building a building. One of our libraries that finished the certification program is in New Canaan, Connecticut. And they're very notable because the new building that they built is the first in the world to have sourced the construction materials to make sure no one in the supply chain was either slave labor or forced labor. They actually sourced every drywall screw and piece of drywall and electrical wiring. Where did that actually come from? How was that actually made? Yes, it might be a cheapest item, but at what cost to the supply chain in terms of the natural resources and the human resources it took to create that? So you can use this lens to help you make a variety of decisions in a much bigger way. But the truth is, the world is a very complex place. And we know that, we understand it because we operate in that world too. But our goal through the work that we're doing and the benefits Matthew's about to explain to you is to take all this complicated stuff and untangle it and find a path forward. So instead of getting tangled up in that mess with that wire, really understanding that we need to find a path through. And so that's what we've focused on, is to stop waiting for someone else to figure out and just go give it a try. So for the past 10 years, I like this phrase, Matthew uses it a lot. We've been doing a proof of concept. We thought that if we created a methodology to do this work, maybe that would be a way to make some headway. And we've shown that over the past 10 years that works. And we're not just hypothetical. We're not just, wouldn't it be cool if we've actually created a methodology to move forward and do this. We've created resources to support that work. They are road tested from everyone from library directors, library workers, boards of trustees, even library friends groups get into the act sometimes, and a ton, and I mean a ton, of community partnerships that have been born out of the work that we've been doing. So this is in ways large and small, but at this point we have over 160 libraries across the US, Canada, and Australia who are actively trying out stuff and reporting back on what works and what doesn't. And then we kind of grab all that knowledge and catalog it in a way and curate it in a way that you can access it, learn from what they've done, and we create some tools that help you do some of that work yourself as well, and hopefully a more accelerated way, a way that is going to produce results that matter for you and really make your library stronger and more resilient moving forward. So I want to ask Matthew to unmute and come online and explain those specific things so you can see when you get your login and you jump into our website, some of the cool things you can grab and start using.
Yeah, thanks, Rebecca. And I would say to the group, boy, right? Take a breath. Holy cow, right? It's a big world out there, and I think that the word that I focus on, Rebecca, when you talk is about choice, right? These are choices that we make every day. And so kind of when I first heard about the triple bottom line and thought about it was I couldn't unsee it, right? Like I saw it was there, but then the next thing is, holy cow, I make a lot of choices in my job. And I'm kind of the library director at the Hauppauge Public Library, which is in Suffolk County, New York on Long Island. And we have a lot of people who work here. We do a lot of programs. We're a very active place. There's a lot of different choices that get made. And so some of the things that I'm going to talk about that we're able to provide kind of allowed a structure to address them, not in their order or in some priority, but kind of in a way that allowed us to have those conversations as a staff. But the first thing is that we're going to show at a slide right at the end is how to sign up for these different benefits. And we'll get into the details of how to do that. But because you're a member of your state association or one of those national associations that we have a memorandum of understanding with, you get these benefits. So that's really awesome. And we're really excited to work through these local, like statewide and national organizations to try to get people on board with joining us here at the Sustainable Libraries Initiative. So I think one of the best things we do is provide a lot of human capital to try to connect folks who are thinking through all these tough questions. So what we try to do is have different meetups on various topics. So here, January 8th coming up is social cohesion. So an opportunity to talk about libraries' role in doing that work. So you're going to have various peers, whether they're from the same sector, public libraries, or you're a school librarian or academic librarian. You can either send questions in advance or just ask them at the thing and talk about the things that you've tried in that area. And honestly, if you have something pressing you that's not about social cohesion, I'm sure we'll deal with that as well on that phone call. But it provides at least a forum, even if it's just an early thing and you want to lurk in the background and just listen to what's going on in some other libraries, you'll get a feeling for the level of conversation that's happening and hopefully the good resources that come back from the group. One thing that Rebecca mentioned, and this, some of these things that we do, of course, can lead towards the full-blown, fully immersed certification program. And it's no small thing to take on. But there's a lot of things here that you can start if you don't have any inkling to do a certification program and kind of have us certify that you're doing this work in a certain way. You can just start thinking about this, you and your board or whatever your the organization that oversees or whatever kind of oversight that you have at your library, you can start thinking about these policies well in advance of that. And we try to provide some really good examples of things that you can be thinking about. Purchasing, right? Uh, Rebekkah, I always think about your purchasing policy because I think it's a really great example uh, of how to think about this. And what I mean by that is she really wanted to celebrate in her institution supporting local businesses. And so the board gave you some wiggle room to
Mhm.
go above, let's say, the lowest price you found if they could source it locally, right? So there was a little bit of a recognition there that we're willing to pay a few more bucks. So we're going to get some sandwiches for folks, right, for something. And I could go to the Walmart and maybe it's, down at this price, but they'll let me go a few dollars over to support that local shop that's nearby, right? And so that kind of thinking is intentional, right? It's not just whim, it's not just how we do things, but it gives some room, and the board's aware of that conversation and says, we want to support local. And we've tried to do that here at the Hauppauge Library, where we say, you know what, we're going to give away at our event some gift cards. So we don't try to buy the large box stores. We try to go to those local businesses and say, we want to support you and give away a $10 gift card for something that we have coming up as a gift. Again, trying to keep that relationship that, hey, we know you're paying taxes and hey, you're supporting us. But that's done through policy. So when Rebekkah leaves and someone else comes into her job or someone else comes in, it's not, we don't have to figure it out because it was her idea. This is how we do things here, right? It becomes this kind of institutional knowledge. And you can do anywhere from a sustainability policy that kind of could be a really broad, high-end type of thing, all the way down to these very specific things. No idling. We don't want you idling. In some of our bigger libraries that have different van services or maybe doing different kinds of things, you want to, that's could be a really important policy to you. Or you may just want to have something about how you travel or how you deal with your partnerships in your community, just to have some language there that's talking about how are we going to really pull these things off. But I know as me, as someone who has to come up with policy, I love to borrow from other people and then modify for what I need. And so we're trying to give you a fighting chance with some of these ideas. Training. So you're joining us here, and thank you for doing so. I really appreciate you all coming on and trying to understand more about this great new benefit that your association has let you get through their partnership with us. But there is definitely more training that we provide. So once you get that login, and again, we'll go through that at the end, you have access to all these great, sometimes live, if one's coming up December 18th, a naturalist in residence. That sounds very fascinating and interesting. But all the way through, hey, how do I be a cooling center? How do I do that? I think here in New York, don't you just need a fan, Rebekkah?
We do, yeah.
Yeah, and you're a cooling center, right? Who knew? Repair cafes, those are super cool. Community gardening. How do you measure sustainability? All kind of things that might pop up for you. It might be a little bit more than those kind of monthly meetup type of questions, but some of those larger, thornier issues, we really try to listen to our members. We try to understand kind of what's on your mind by the questions that are being asked. And can we find a good speaker to kind of amplify that up and try to spread the good work that's happening? And if you feel as though you've really solved something, you have the definitive answer for X about this, then we'd love to hear from you because we're always looking for more folks to help out to spread that information, whether it's going to be at your own statewide conference or a regional conference, national conference, or even on one of these webinars. We'd love to have some help uh, to spread the really good ideas that are going on out there. So I think what you can gather is we really believe in the people that are part of this and the people who are not part of this that are doing good work. We want to celebrate it all. And we think that we're trying to provide that home and space for people to gather so they can exchange those ideas in a really good, really, I think, supportive community of practice. This one I love. Now, because I'm a stats guy, and so I love statistics. And so nothing's better to me than a custom CO2 calculator. Let me tell you that. So what we're trying to do here is to capture what you're spending and what you're using so that over time, if you started doing work on this topic, let's say you never did any work in your library and you still have fluorescent T8s in your ceiling, and all of a sudden you had a grant money or your utility got involved and allowed you to do a change in your electrical use, maybe you could see this chart that shows, hey, our energy usage down here, and 3 years, 5 years later, it's way down here. And that not only did I use less energy, but look at all this money I saved, right? So there's more than one green in sustainability, and the one that people tend to focus on is the one that's in your wallet, right? So people care about that green. And so for those folks that sometimes don't really are interested in the question about climate change, are usually interested in the bottom line, the dollar line. And so by using these kinds of tools, it gives you an idea of how to tell that story. And what we're trying to do is to aggregate all this data to say, hey, look at the difference libraries are making in reducing their their climate emissions. Look what we're doing to reduce it down. And if you put your data in here, we can generate out a nice slide for your annual report or for your website or for whatever you want to put that up to show longitudinally that was that a word?
I think
Longitudinally.
so.
Yeah, nice. And that shows that kind of work that you've invested. And here's a nice graphic that'll give you those great talking points when you're talking to those funders to say, hey, look what we're doing. You know, look what we've done. We put it solar on, we've reproduced this, even though we added those car charging ports, we're still below where we were 3, 4, 5 years ago, right? And so it's just a really cool tool, I think, to do that. I would love to see all this being asked on the annual report, but I don't think IMLS is really functioning at a level right now to hear my concerns about that. But I'll wait. Programs. Who is not doing tons of programs at their library, right? So here's an opportunity to start to understand, hey, what's worked out there? I think a bee hotel program sounds absolutely incredible, and I think my teens would love to do it too. So I don't need to think that through all the way. You literally click on more details and you're going to get the gist of how to do this program. And most likely even the kind of person who's in your community who might be someone there to help you pull that off. So in New York, we have what's called Cornell Cooperative, which does a lot of gardening programs and a lot of those nature programs. Other places, maybe you don't have a relationship with your Future Farmers of America or other different cooperatives that do that kind of work, or horticulturalists or gardeners. So, and that's just one idea. Um, Different kind of how to do your own rain barrels, you know, clothing swaps, things that maybe you thought of doing but just didn't know how to pull it all together. You can really drive around in this section, and this is available on our website. Once you get through, you get that account, you sign up, you'll be able to see all this stuff and just really have at it. So I think it's a really cool resource. And again, you have a great idea, you don't see it here, and it's something you've done and don't mind sharing, put it on up there. We'd love to have those suggestions. And I think in our monthly e-newsletter, which you'll receive when you start to sign up for our stuff, is there's a request for these ideas. We'll ask everybody, hey, here's a form to fill out. Let us know what you're doing that's really unique, and we'd like to add it into this. So it's kind of it's like the little free library of program ideas. You know, you can put one in, take one out, you know, try it on, tell us what happened, tell us what worked, and what was your variant on that made it work out even better? Vendors, right? Sometimes we need to spend some dollars to get something done. And this is a great list that's vetted by other members of the Sustainable Libraries Initiative. So our requirement to list someone here is that you've worked with that person, someone who's a member of the SLI has worked with this vendor and obviously would recommend them, right? We don't want to have someone up here that says, yeah, I worked with XYZ and it was the worst experience of my life. We're still suing each other. You know, we're not going to have those kinds of groups here. What we're going to have here is someone who had a good experience with someone, and this is what they helped me solve. So sometimes that's a great start. Even if you might not necessarily wind up doing business with that person, at least it might give you some idea of what's in the marketplace that might solve some of those issues that you're having. And it's, as you can see, it's not all just about buildings. It's not all about, transportation. There's all sorts of folks in here. Reforestation. I didn't even know that was a category we had in there, but there they are. Things about wellness and recycling and grants, gardening, all sorts of different topics. And, again, we'll ask for you if you have a vendor that you think would work for this, we'll add them in as well. The Climate Action Lab, this is a tool that was just revamped, I think in the last year, right, Rebekkah?
It was, yeah.
Yep. And this is a really cool idea because what this tries to do is tries to get you to think about what are the potential things that's going to happen in your particular region, area, service area. So where I am, like an ice storm is not as probable as a hurricane, right? Tornado is not as probable as lightning or hail. So there are certain things that's going to hit Long Island with a little more frequency and prediction than some other things. So what this allows me to do is to start to think about, all right, in the next period of time, we have the more likely chance to experience this kind of disruption, right? That the climate might come and do these different things. Now I can start asking some pretty serious questions. Does my facility, can it handle that? What would be the outcome of trying to operate under those conditions? Where would I be able to, how would my folks react? Like, can my staff operate in that period of time? If it's most things, I feel like when climate comes, like when disruption comes, is we lose electricity, right? We lose internet, we lose communication. Okay, how can I do the things I need to do in those environments? And Rebekkah, I know I told you this story, but when we had Superstorm Sandy hit Long Island, one of the things that I don't think anyone thought about was the fact that we had trouble getting gasoline down here. And so those shipments of gas to the gas pumps on Long Island were stopped or held up, or we just couldn't get what we needed. So I had staff who were nervous about driving to work because they had only so much gas. And so that was something that I had not confronted in my career before, and that we had to figure out, okay, what can we do with that? How can we figure out that solution or work through this issue? How long do we think that's going to be? And so, you know, thinking through some of those issues that can come up, whether you do it as a tabletop exercise or all the rest, this is a tool that helps you start to think that through. And I think it's a fantastic resource to get you going.
Matt, I will just add the climate action plan template is based, it was actually a resource I developed for a workshop series we did in partnership with Web Junction. So there's a guide by the side basically where you can hop onto Web Junction for free. You can listen to that webinar and understand what we mean in that part of the template. But honestly, the template is pretty self-explanatory and it just walks you through in real simple terms where to find the information, what to fill in, what to do next. And sometimes you won't have all the answers, but at least you'll know what you don't know and you need to research.
You might be surprised what you do know too,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So, in addition to all of that, what we have is a few different resources. The one on the left, the roadmap to sustainability, is kind of the very beginning of a journey that you can undertake. This came out pretty early on in our initiative's life, and what it really intended to do was to start was a way for folks to start to capture where they were in that moment. Start to write down the things that they're already doing. Start to think about some of the actions that they could take in the next short term, medium term, long term. Had some vocabulary in there, had some lessons from some libraries that already had done some very good work in there. And it really turned out to be a really nice tool that you could share with your staff. Like, so if you were going to have a staff development day, you could hand these out or give the link to the app version of it. We recently had some help from OCLC to help us update the app to a more modern platform than we were for a little while. And it's also available as a PDF on our website. So it's a great tool just to start that really basic thinking. Then, kind of on the other side of the slide here is a Sustainable Library Certification Program. This is a full-blown institution-wide opportunity for you to have a third party, which is us, the Sustainable Libraries Initiative, kind of put a stamp that says you are doing good work. You are on the right track, and we believe that you are truly thinking sustainably and that your institution shows that slide that Rebekkah showed before, those kinds of four characteristics of what it means to be a sustainable library. And that's not the end of that journey, right? That journey continues because we don't make you do all of the, how many categories are there? 140 something different action items in all these different categories, but you have to do a fair number of them. And you're going to touch upon all these different aspects of what it means. And not only for public and academic libraries, but we also have individual school librarians. There's a program for them as well. And by joining by being a member of your state association or national association, you also get 20% off joining these programs. So, and that's, I think, that's a really great benefit to get started here. And the thing about it is when you get started with this, if you do choose to sign up, there's no time limit to finish. So you pay for the program once, and then you're able to go through it at whatever rate you need. So we have folks that are taking their time to get through it, and that's just fine because there's an idea of trying to do the thing. Then you're telling us in the tool about the thing, and then when you're all done, then we read through all your answers, and then there's a little back and forth about that. But what it tries to touch on is really a lot of the operational aspects of running libraries. How much energy are you using? Have you thought about your waste and recycling and purchasing? One of the favorite things that we make you do is a garbage audit where you actually go through and see what's the kind of trash that you're collecting on a daily basis and to think through, are there ways to improve that? What's your community involvement, social equity, financial sustainability, collections? Really to really go through a lot of those aspects of the day-to-day decisions that you make and trying to train you to think sustainably through those by using that triple bottom line.
And Matt, if I could, I'll just say that for the public and academic libraries on the call today, this is ironically, it's not just a checklist, even though it looks like a checklist, but we designed it with organizational change in mind. So the first section there, organizational commitment, is designed to help actually get everyone on board, to institutionalize policies, to communicate really strongly throughout the organization of why you're going to embark on this process and get people's feedback and buy-in to what you're doing so that as you start moving through the rest of the categories, people get why we're doing this and get to see the results of small changes that are made in the workplace and it really builds the buy-in. And I am speaking from experience because not only did I help author it, but I did it here in my own organization, which was an amazing experience from the really one of my favorite things was it just boosted the morale of the staff. They had a say in what was going on in their workplace. They got to influence decisions that were being made. It created a bridge between them and the board to be working on something really visibly together, which was fabulous for the culture of the organization. But it also built ownership over the things that were decided. So I always share this little story that I knew it was working when it was for a long time people would say, "Oh, that's Rebekkah's project," or "Oh, Rebekkah said we have to do this." And the day I knew we had turned a corner was when I heard one of my coworkers in the break room with a new staff person who had just started working here, and she was explaining things like, why we have a reusable filter for the Keurig. We don't use the plastic things, or why you need to shut this appliance off when you're done, or why you have to shut your light off in your office when you're not in there. And she said, because that's the way we do things here. And it totally changed everyone's perspective of why we do things because we're a responsible organization. We believe in being a good partner to the earth and our neighbors. And it really made everything that came after so much easier to the point where actually just recently, the person who co-chaired the team who did most of this work for the certification, he and I, as Matt said, at the end, it's not, you're not done, right? It's like picking your path for the rest of the journey for your time here at work. We had created like a wish list, like, well, we got certified, but could you imagine what if we got solar on the building one day? And we're like, well, that probably won't happen. That's really expensive. But you know what? 4 years later, we figured it out because we put it on a piece of paper. We started talking about it. We found the financing for it. Our board was really bought in because they saw where we were trying to go. And then when we were done, our board said to us, well, what's next? And we were like, oh, well, how about a pollinator garden? Like we never thought they'd go for it. And they did. And then after that, they're like, what's next? And we're like, well, like the last thing on the list is geothermal. We don't know how we're going to do that. And seriously, less than a year later, our utility knocked on the door and said, we're doing a community geothermal project. Would you be interested in researching this with us? We were like, why, yes, we would. And it wasn't a hard sell to our board because we've been talking about it for years. So it creates a culture, it identifies benchmarks, it helps you build things into strategic plans and your facility plans that help you go that extra mile and do the right thing. So this is why Alex has put into the chat the registration for the certification program panel tomorrow, because we think some of you might be really interested to hear other people's stories about what it's meant to their organizations as well, because each library story is different.
And that's what makes this so interesting. What this resource is that part of that certification program is we ask you to do a final presentation. And we're right now figuring out a way to kind of share these presentations because we've asked folks who finished to come and talk to some of us on the advisory board and to have a conversation about it. And they've been very interesting to hear directly from those who finished. But if you're not able to attend that or to see that, you are able to see their PowerPoint slide decks. And these are amazing. They are amazing to see. And what I think that the best thing at this stage, if you're just new to what we're up to, is how different people have attempted to do the things that we asked in this certification program. Is there's a lot of ways to answer these questions. And again, to be in our industry, to be in libraries, to hear the creativity, to understand the thinking that goes into this, the way that communities respond, how different we are, how the same we are, all those different things shine through these presentations. And it's really cool to have a Canadian one now. So if you go to the Surrey libraries, that's really fascinating to read theirs and their take on it. On this sheet, on this slide, you have two different academic libraries at the bottom, Cal Poly Humboldt and San Diego State University. We have Concord in Maine. We have Charlotte in Vermont. And we've had a really large public library system in the San Diego County Library go through this. They have an excellent presentation as well. So there's tons of great ideas buried throughout these. So it might be worth trying to find peer institutions to your size and then think about, what they did and what it took on their journey. But there's really some fantastic resources in these.
I see Alex just posted the link to check them out. There's over 70 folks that are certified now, so you've got lots to choose from, public, academic, and school librarians.
Thanks. So this is kind of a summary of what you get with that benefit of being able to join the Sustainable Libraries Initiative through the partnership with your state association or national association. Newsletters, apps, webinars, resources, Facebook and Instagram. Who doesn't love social media? And then for your partner things, you can get the on-demand training, policies, CO2 calculator, vendor information, programs, Climate Action Lab, and other curated resources. And of course, you have access to a 20% discount for the Sustainable Library Certification Program. And I think one thing that'll definitely get mentioned tomorrow is the concept of a mentor for that. So we assign someone that's already gone through the certification program to be there for that institution as they work through their certification program. And it's, I think, one of the great design elements of this because there's that immediate resource to get those answers because there can be some things that can be confusing or the way we designed it made sense and maybe it doesn't make sense to you, but that kind of translator, that person who's gone through it, that person who's thought through that question, or just can turn around and ask their network, for a way to get an answer to that question. But the really beautiful thing about the certification program is that there is no one answer. There's no right answer to any of these questions. It's the one that you worked out to fulfill the spirit of what we're asking. And that's to me what's really cool about it, because that creativity can really shine through. And this is it. This is how you do it, right, Rebekkah?
Yeah, so Alex put this slide together for you to make this as easy as possible. You can use the QR code to jump right to the page that's mentioned here. And just note you choose the membership type and then you fill out the membership form. And when you get to how did I hear about us? How did you hear about us? You select other and enter in that library association that's affiliated now with the Sustainable Libraries Initiative. And that's how the staff know not to expect payment from you because you get that free 12-month membership. It's really pretty simple. And right now you've got, I believe, Alex and Hannah online who can answer any questions related to getting that membership. But Matt and I are also here for the next few minutes if you have questions about anything we've talked about or anything you wanted to bring to our attention. But while I watch the Q&A box to see if anything comes through, we really want to thank you for joining us today. We're thrilled that you're interested in what's going on here. We hope you take advantage of this opportunity your association has created for you as a member benefit. And we look forward to learning from you as well as we hope to be beneficial to you.
Now, folks could unmute as well, right, Rebekkah?
Oh, yeah, they could. Yeah. So please, yeah, raise your hand if you've got a question or feel free to type into the chat and we'll do our best to answer your questions. So we see a question here. Can we join later after running this by the board? So the answer is absolutely yes. You can do whatever you want. But I would also say that you might want to go ahead and get the free membership. And then, whether or not you join the certification program, you can do it at any point during your 12 months. And once you join it, as Matt said, there's no ticking clock. So I would say you'd probably just want to, within the 12 months, join the certification program to get the 20% discount. And then you can legit take as long as you want to do the certification program. We know sometimes it takes a while to make the case to your board or have your own time as a library leader to have the headspace to figure out how to do that work. And if you ever want to talk to someone like myself or Matt, like how did you organize this effort at your library and get it off the ground, we're happy to chat with you to help you figure that out and see if it's a good fit for you. We have helped with board presentations. I'm thinking of this. There's a library system up, like say, up north here in New York, near the Canadian border, and they had me talk to their board to make the case for doing this. And one of the big questions that comes up is, why are you charging for the certification program? And we want to be really clear. Matt and I are volunteers. We don't get anything for doing this other than good vibes from the universe. We have day jobs. We volunteer our time. We don't get paid for speaking to you or doing really any of this work. We're volunteers. But the website that supports the certification program, there's an annual fee we pay to keep that up. It's a custom designed website by Library Market, Woohoo Library Market. And there's obviously costs related to the staff support that's going on with Alex and Hannah and Sophia, who's also working with us on these programs. So when you see the dollar figure tied to the certification amount, I'll just say to you from experience and from 160 other libraries who went through it, you will make back or save more than you spend on the membership for the certification program. So if you're curious about that and, well, what do you mean by that, Rebekkah? Where'd you get money? Where'd the savings come from? Just ask. Happy to tell those stories and connect you with those resources. All right. Well, I'm not seeing other hands up and no other questions seem to be in the chat. You've got the contact information for the SLI. You can see that at the bottom, sliadmin@suffolknet.org. Suffolk is the Suffolk Cooperative Library System, which is the fiscal sponsor of the Sustainable Libraries Initiative. So they're housed in Suffolk County, where Matt is also. But this is a program that is international at this point, thanks to the support of the Suffolk Cooperative Library System. So we always like to thank them and give them a shout out at the end of our workshops. But again, thank you so much for coming. We hope you learned some interesting stuff and sign up for your free membership. You literally have nothing to lose and hopefully a lot to gain. So we wish you the best of luck and please reach out if you have any other questions.
Thank you all. Thanks for coming today.